about those
No, no,
maps.
no. Listen, I'm loving this. I'm loving this. And Doc, you being in Florida, right? Growing up, I love college football, of course. And one of the biggest and coolest mascots that people tried to use, of course, was the Florida State Seminoles, right? But I find
Right.
it ironic and crazy, whether it's the at the time Washington Redskins, Florida State Seminoles, that white America, they kind of outwardly show us, right? But then when it comes to speaking on who were the Seminoles, these stories aren't taught in everyday history class. Why do you think when it comes to Seminole history, the Black Seminole Project, if you will, why when it comes to talking about those topics at length, why is it always tried to be just suppressed every single time?
Primarily because of when we're talking specifically about the Seminoles, right?
Right, right.
Well, when we're talking specifically about the Seminoles, they shy away from it because the Seminoles had a very large faction of Black people in it.
Mm.
They intermingled. You hear everything about Geronimo.
Yep.
You hear everything about Sitting Bull and all that, but you don't really hear much about Osceola.
Mm.
The reason you don't hear much about Osceola is because Osceola was mixed. His mother was half Black, half Native American.
Wow.
His father was white. But because his mother belonged in the matrilineal line with his grandmother, he grew up Native American because he belonged to a clan.
That's right.
You see, but you have Black Seminoles who are direct descendants from the Florida Maroons, and you have Black Seminoles that are in ancestral lines with Native Americans, but it is through the paternal line, it's through their father. And the way Native American culture goes is that everything is matrilineal.
Yeah.
So in order to belong to a clan, it has to be through your mother. In order to actually grow up in Native American culture, it has to be through your mother because you have to belong to a clan. And so that's the main reason why Osceola is not talked about, not researched, not done any specific movies on, is because if they do, they would have to tell the truth that he was half Black, half Native American, and most of the warriors in his band, when he would move in different times, when especially when they would do guerrilla warfare, where they would hit and run, were Black warriors.
Wow.
And then, of course, he had a Black wife. Now, he had more than one wife. Osceola had quite a few children. But one of his main wives was a Black woman.
Wow.
And she actually was the cause at one time for the Second Seminole War continuing. He was captured. He was captured along with his Black counterpart, John Horse.
Yep.
And he found out that his wife was on a wagon train about to be shipped out to the Arkansas Territory and put on the Trail of Tears.
Wow.
And John Horse helped him escape, and he went and got her. And the war continued.
Wow.
And so these are the stories that they're not going to tell you. These are the stories they don't want to get out because, again, there's such a strong Black force. There's such a strong Black component. And there is such a strong Black essence for the war itself. See, we saw in at least three different instances in the war where the Black Seminoles, who were now being collectively called Black Seminoles, whether you were in a matrilineal, patrilineal, or you were a recent runaway that joined them. They were Black Seminoles and their allies or Black freedmen, right? And so when we look at those dynamics, right, what we find then is that at three different times during the war, the primary objective of the military was to round up these blacks and return them to enslavement.
Yeah.
And so when you look at all of those different dynamics, then you actually look at the documents themselves where General Thomas Jefferson, who was over the war, declares that this is not an Indian war, this is a Negro war. You see, then the whole dynamics change. And so then everything that you think about when you think about your quote unquote Indian wars, you think about the Trail of Tears and all of that. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't say this. There is ongoing research, strong ongoing research, where we do have evidence of that relationship between African descendants, blacks in this hemisphere with the quote unquote Native Americans and red. And research is beginning to also indicate, and much more research needs to be done, but at what time period, we cannot specifically say as of yet with definitive. But we're getting close. But it's strong evidence that Africans or Black people or melanated people, because they may have been here. See, that's the thing. They could have been here the whole time. We don't know yet. We still have research to uncover.
Yes, sir.
So I don't say definitively yet till I get and read and other, because I'm not just relying. I don't think that I'm the sole person to do this. It takes all of us researching to uncover these things. And so as we continue to do so, though, we do know this, though. We know that even Africans were coming to this hemisphere before. We got the Olmecs in South America.
That's right.
We even have Christopher Columbus, who basically says that the current that he used was taught to him by African seafarers. So at the very least, we know Africans were coming over. Now, whether or not Black people was already here, we're still uncovering more and more research, and there's more and more research to do before we can definitively put anything out where it won't be attacked by the academy. And of course, we know it will be attacked by the academy because it changes the whole dynamics on civilization.
Yeah.
So that kind of work, though, is ongoing. There are scholars, there are journeymen, I mean, not journeymen, but researchers who may not have been to college. It doesn't matter. If you can read and you know how to look up that information, then you're a researcher.
That's right.
And so this information, as they begin to share this information, we can then start putting the pieces together. And then we can definitively outline everything and show definitively the presence of melanated people here in America for what could be considered, or what could be, when I say could be, of course, that's depending on all of the solid researches from the earliest days when there was Atwater land, Gatwater land, and even before that.
Yes, sir.
So research still has to be done in that area, but luckily we have enough conscious people who are looking through records, and we even look to the earliest European records because they even say things themselves. The Spanish, they describe the Arawaks as swarthy, and we know what swarthy means.
Yep. Yep.
So there's evidence, not just that we have to uncover, but there's evidence found from all over the world with different cultures.
That's right.
We just have to, like I said, put all of that evidence together in a definitive manner. And I get researchers who want me to say, I'm like, I'm not saying it until we have all of the definitive. Yes, it does make sense.
Yes,
yes,
sir.
yeah, that is the most plausible explanation. But no, we need to make definitive because it has to be a definitive argument because of what we would be going up against.
Yeah.
In terms of getting the correct information out there. So it has to be definitive. We got to get our ducks in a row.
Yes, sir, for sure. Osceola, what makes him so impactful, significant to Seminole history? Why is he so important?
Well, Osceola is important because Osceola rises as what was declared as a war chief. See, he was not a chief. He was not in line to be a chief.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, John Horse has the ascendancy to be a Black Seminole chief quicker or with more understanding than Osceola, because John Horse's father was a Native American chief. So it stands to reason that he would become a Black Seminole chief.
Right.
Now, Osceola, on the other hand, is declared a war chief because of his determination to fight, his fighting prowessness, and his unwillingness to compromise when that was the exact right thing to do, not compromise at those particular times.
That's right.
Now, there were times when they did have to compromise, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that as well, because we have Native Americans who are upset, saying, "Oh, the Seminoles that went out west, they're quitters, they're this, that, and the other." But they're coming from the wrong line of thinking. Had the Seminoles not migrated out west, they would have been annihilated. Plain and simple. There are no more Temucans. There are no more Guale. There are those who claim ancestry to Guale, but there are no Guale. There is no Guale tribe anymore. There is no Temucans or Timuquans, some say, which is actually the more correct term, Timuquan. There are more. Here's another one. There are no more Comanches now, are there? And they talk about how well they fought, and they fought to the death, literally, because they were annihilated.
Wow.
And so I think they don't understand that had this large number of Seminoles not migrated out west, and had not the number that stayed ended up being pushed into and migrating into the Everglades, they wouldn't still be here.
Wow.
And so they have to understand that. And see, that's the thing about it. We understand that the Black faction, Abraham understood that. Abraham knew that they would never stop hunting for them to return them to slavery.
Wow.
He understood that as long as they were in Florida, as long as they were in Florida, right? As long as it had the appearance that they were a colony, and they were on their way to becoming a nation, right?
Yeah.
And so had the idea that plantation society, the United States government, and the military were going to allow that to happen was simply false. And Abraham understood that they would go to the very last person if need be.
Wow.
And so that's why in 1838 and in late 1837, when the U.S. government finally gave up and said, okay, if y'all want to go out west and live free, go ahead. Abraham accepted that. Now, there were Black Seminoles that disliked Abraham for that. But unlike those, what we would call at that time, common Black Seminoles, right? Abraham had negotiated with them. Abraham had gone to D.C. He had gone to different military force. He saw the military might. He saw the willingness of white people to do whatever they had to do.
Wow.
To either enslave them or get rid of them.
Wow.
And so he had to negotiate. And when you negotiate, there's no way to negotiate without making certain what? Compromises.
That's right.
There's no way to negotiate without it. And so we do have Black Seminoles, because even Black Seminoles out west to this day don't have the most favorable things to say about Abraham.
Wow.
But it is because of that same thing that Seminole Native Americans are holding on in Florida with that misthought, right?
Yeah.
Same thing they're holding on to in Oklahoma. That Abraham somehow sold him out, or he gave, he ended up being a traitor. No, he ended up saving the community. He ended up saving their lives. He ended up doing what he had to do so that you still have that Black Seminole community in Oklahoma. You have the Black Seminole community in Nacimiento. You have the Black Seminole community in Florida.
That's right.
You got to even have the Black Seminole community in the Bahamas. I wouldn't say so much Bahamas, because that happened about the time Abraham was rising to power. So he really didn't have a big say-so in them getting to the Bahamas. But everything after, everything from 1826 to when John Horse takes over and everything else, is because Abraham paved that way.
Wow.
And so that's one of the things we also look to do with the documentary, right? And that is tell the entire truth for everyone.